What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Nerding Out Sports, it's Rob and Donald, and the Giants head coaching search is almost over. We have another interview scheduled today with Brian Dable. Brian Flores is coming in the next couple of days, and there's also Patrick Graham is set to get interviewed. So the Giants seemingly have their, what I would say, top three in terms of their choices for head coach. Although it seems like the writing is on the wall. They want Dable. But it's a good idea to do, at least interview guys like Graham and Flores, because you might get something in their interview, especially with Flores. I think he's the most qualified. But Donald, what do you think? Do you think it's Dable's job to lose, or what?
It's Stable's job to lose. From everything that you're reading on Twitter and all the tea leaves and the insiders, they're all kind of saying that from what they're hearing, it's Stable's. But they'll do their due diligence. You know what I mean? Ian O'Connor. I know I sent this tweet to you. Ian O'Connor tweeted the other day that Brian Dable gets his second interview in wake of his masterpiece. He says, my sense entering Sunday was Shane liked Flores, but slightly preferred Dable, while Mara liked Dable, but preferred Flores. So he said it's a two-possession game between the two of them, so it seems like it'll be just between those two. But I think with the way that Dable coached one of the greatest offensive games I've ever seen, and the Chiefs-Bills game, which we'll get into in a minute. He did himself no harm. Let's just say that. He did himself no harm. That was an absolutely immense display from Josh Allen. And you've got to give Dable the credit for that because there was a lot of really beautifully designed plays. He is a heck of an offensive coach. And, if he could do half of what he's done with Josh Allen, with any of our future quarterbacks, whether it be Daniel Jones or the next quarterback, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. So another thing, he's the only offensive candidate that we're interviewing. Everyone else are defensive guys. So I don't know. Read that into that what you will. I think that kind of says to me that Dable is it's kind of it's his to lose, really. I mean, he's got the connection with Shane. They've worked together. They trust each other. And I said in a couple of podcasts that I had no problem with whoever our future GM chooses to be his head coach. He needs to be in sync with and 100% lockstep with. So I'm quite happy. If he chooses Dable, then I'm absolutely happy with that. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean that's been my choice for this whole time was Shane and Dable. So I'm happy it seems to be trending in that direction. Plus, when you hear about the coaches that Dable could bring with him, there's some talk about Ken Dorsey coming over as the offensive coordinator. Although I think he might want to stay in Buffalo and take that step up and get the promotion there, but that remains to be seen. But we're hearing there's a lot of rumblings, and it's not just a rumor. There's a strong thought that Wink Martindale would be coming with Dable to be our defensive coordinator, which is very interesting. So if that's the case, and we were able to get Dable as the head coach, Martindale as a defensive coordinator, that's actually a couple of good things because then maybe that means Patrick Graham has a head coaching job elsewhere. I think he's at least earned an opportunity. There have been talks about him wanting to stay on as defensive coordinator with us, but we'll see where that goes. If they want to transform this whole thing, they might have to wipe the whole slate clean from the old staff and bring in a whole new one. But I think Graham does deserve a shot head coaching somewhere. It might not be here, but somewhere. But you're talking about a really good-looking staff if you have Dable with Dorsey or I would like Pep Hamilton. That'd be one of my picks as offensive coordinator. But Martindale coming over as defensive coordinator because he was such a surprise to see him get let go. And everyone's like, that'd be great if he came over to the Giants. And it's a very realistic possibility from what we're hearing right now. So, I mean, I'm excited. looking forward to see how these interviews go. And by the end, they're saying by the end of the week, it could be even today. If Dable comes out of his interview and just wows them and says, "All right, you got the job," it's exciting times because we said it last episode. They're doing things right this time. They're going against what they've done before. They're bringing in guys who are having a lot of success, from the GM position, and now they're looking at the same thing with the coaching staff. It seems like there's a plan in place, and they're executing that plan so far. So I think if they got the first domino to fall, which was the GM, now if you get the head coach that you wanted the whole time, that means your plan is working and things are falling into place. And for the first time in a while, we can say something positive about this organization, because we haven't been able to say that over the last calendar year, basically.
So how would you assess the two candidates, man? What would you say would be the positives and the drawbacks of both our, let's say it's between Flores and Dable. What would be the positives and drawbacks, and how would you assess the two candidates right now?
Well, with Dable, the positives is you get the offensive mind, because we need it. We desperately need it. And he's bringing in a guy like Martindale with him would certainly help out with a first-time head coach. I know we thought that would be the case with Judge, and but we gave him Jason Garrett, so I mean it wasn't necessarily. We gave him Patrick Graham, and that worked out for the first year, but didn't really work out last year. But if you're getting a really good offensive-minded coach and a really good defensive-minded coach, and you're putting them together for the first time on your new staff, I think that's definitely a positive. Plus, because we need all the offense we can get. We need it. We need to be able to get someone in. And if Dable has his choice of offensive coordinator, and if it is Ken Dorsey, then, I mean, we're going to try to maximize our targets for Daniel Jones or whoever the quarterback is. So we got to get the most out of Tony, out of Galladay, whether or not Ingram is back, and guys like Slayton, and if they keep Shepard. You have to maximize all of those guys because there's a lot of weapons on this team. Negatives with Dable is he would be a first-time head coach. We saw that kind of backfire with the last 3 coaches of ours, so it's certainly something to keep an eye on. With Flores, the positives is he has the head coaching experience. He was really good with a team that probably should not have won as many games as they did. So that's definitely a positive. He has that experience and he's had success in that position. The negatives is he didn't really get the most, and I know a lot of that could fall on the coordinators, but he didn't really get the most out of that quarterback situation. They took a high pick, used a high pick on a quarterback, didn't really get a lot out of Tua, although it was, a little bit on him. He was going with that whole relief pitcher kind of thing in the first year with Fitzpatrick. So it was a little interesting how they handled that. And I think the drawback with Flores is really it's not really an offensive mind, and that's something that you need in this league to win a lot of games. And I know Miami did, but I'm having a hard time finding a lot of negatives with Flores, though. That's the only negative, but it's really just my bias wanting an offensive coach, really. So I mean, I would not be opposed to Flores at all. I've had my sights set on Shane and Dable for so long. It's the fact that it's actually at the 1 yard line of getting done. I'm just really excited. So that would be my positives and negatives there.
The proverbial 1 yard line, man. A lot can happen in that 1 yard.
Yeah. With us,
we could take it. As we know, Joe Judge managed to fumble at the 1 yard line spectacularly. Yeah, I would agree with you on everything you're saying there. The way I'm assessing the candidates are, I like head coaching experience because our previous guys, we've gone with the offensive minds before. Obviously now McAdoo and Shermer are not nearly the offensive mind that Dable is or the experience. But Shermer was pretty experienced. He was coming off that high with that run that he had as offensive coordinator for Minnesota. So you think about it. But having said that, I like the fact that Dable's been really experienced, not just as offensive coordinator, but it ranges over a bunch of different positions. He's been a coach for. He's been in it for 20 odd years. I don't think it will be a massive step up for him, but it will still be a step up because, I mean, unless he'll be calling the plays, I mean, he's going to have to be a CEO type. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the role of a head coach now is more of a CEO. He will obviously still have his philosophy, and he'll obviously still be heavily involved in the offense. But as a head coach, you also have to be aware of everything: communication, defense, special teams, all these things. So he's going to need, if he's going to be the head coach, then we definitely need an experienced staff around him. So no more rookies around him. He needs to be a really experienced staff. So if you bring in a Wink Martindale or even a Patrick Graham, be defensive coordinator, then we're in good shape, really good shape. Get a really good special teams guy in there. Fine. Do you know what I mean? If there's an experienced coaching staff, then I don't have an issue at all with Dable being the head coach. Prior to Sunday's game, I was on Team Flores. I know that there's been recent rumors. The only drawback that I've been hearing about Flores is Flores' communication skills isn't great, apparently. Like, he made it quite vocally known that he didn't like Tua at all. Pretty much to Tua, from what I'm hearing. I think Tua is more than aware of the fact that Flores was not on board with him whatsoever, which is probably not great. I'll say that. But he is tough, and he holds people to account, and obviously worked because people played way above their level for Miami, because Miami are not a great team, but they were consistently a very strong team over the last 2 years and a winning team. That doesn't happen by accident. So that's a big props for him. You can see why Mara would be impressed with him, and I would be too. I mean, when Flores became available, I couldn't believe it, and my very first thought was he has to come here. He would be fantastic because he would start. Because it's such a really interesting comparison between the two, because we're the worst offense probably ever, right? So Dable would immediately solve that. But then we've also kind of got a broken situation. With the behind the scenes is kind of a mess at the Giants. There's been sniping, and there's the locker room isn't completely united. It's been kind of a mess for a long time. So you want an experienced coach to come in that's tough, but not overly tough, but just a strong personality to sort things out. And I think Flores would be that kind of guy. So it's really how you want to go. If, say, we chose Flores, he would need to bring in a really, really, really top offensive coordinator, like fantastic. But if you've already got a fantastic offensive mind in Dable, then you don't need to obviously worry too much about the OC, because he'll be the one that'll be running it. So you just need a really good DC, and Wink Martindale's available. So it seems like the easiest selection would be Dable because of the connection with Shane. Plus, there's some good defensive coordinators that are already there. One we already have in Graham, who I'd be more than happy with to stay on. I know that Graham is interviewing with the Steelers. He might be interviewing with the Steelers as a possible defensive coordinator. I know that they've asked us permission for Graham to be allowed to interview for that role. If we grant him, permission, then fine. Then Wink Martindale would be sensational. I mean, obviously, during the original interviews when we hired Joe Judge, I really liked Martindale, and I thought he would be a possible candidate. So I see both sides. With the head coaching experience, I'm thinking, whoa, I want Flores. And I wouldn't even discount Dan Quinn, because he was not a bust. He did have some success. But now I think I'm just going to go with Dable because of the incredible game that we saw on Sunday. And also because of the connection with Shane. Shane wants his guy. I'm happy to go with that.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to something that we talked about a few episodes ago. It's like it just seems like Shane has had a plan. It's like when I get a job as GM, if I get a job, I want you as my head coach, and then we're going to put our staff together. And it just seems like this has all been discussed, whether it's tampering or not, who knows? It just seems like this is something that they've talked about and wanting to work together as, with the new team as their own thing, as a GM head coach combination, rather than assistant GM and you're the offensive coordinator. Now they're going to be like a duo and they're going to work together to rebuild a team that desperately needs to be rebuilt. And they both had huge parts in bringing Buffalo to where they are right now. So I'm all for it. If we get Dorsey with Dable, I think that's a really good scenario right there because, Dable obviously has familiarity with Dorsey, and it would be the best way you can maximize what you get out of Daniel Jones if they go that direction. But yeah, I mean it's coming to an end here. I wonder who we're gonna get. I'm thinking it's Dable. Would not be opposed to Flores.
Is there any other candidates which you think might be in the running? Like, for instance, we also interviewed the Bengals defensive coordinator because he's obviously been part of a huge turnaround as part of the Bengals organization. Now they're the AFC Championship game. Their defense was always an all-time worst, and they've been excellent this year. Would you consider him, for instance, or anybody else?
I was thinking when they interviewed Frazier, I was like, I was on board with that because I really like the Buffalo connection with anyone that Shane wanted to interview. But then you see the way Buffalo's defense kind of, and they were going against the Chiefs. I will say that. I never had my eye on a defensive guy. I was like, our defense is skilled. We have a lot of solid players, and we can add to that in the draft. We really, in my opinion, we have the secondary in place. Even if you lose guys like Peppers and Ryan, they still have a solid secondary. You're going to get Martinez back potentially, whether they cut him. You really need to fix that edge rusher position, and then you have a pretty solid defense, one that can help you win a lot of games. The pieces are there for the defense to be good. They just really need, and I think Graham is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. So I don't think the defense really needed that much to be elevated. I thought it was the offense that needed it tremendously from all sides. Everything needed to be fixed with this offense. So I always had my mind on the offensive guys, and that's why Dable was always my top choice. And when they started bringing in all these defensive guys for interviews, I was like, just give the job to Dable. I was like, please don't do this. But yeah, I haven't really looked at many other candidates. Once they announced that Dable got the interview, I was like, okay. And they said Flores was on the list. I'm like, all right, that's my two. Flores and Dable. Whoever you pick, I'm all for it. But I
am kind of glad that they gave Lou Anarumo the Bengals defensive coordinator a look because he was actually involved in the Giants organization as a defensive backs coach in 2018. So we do have knowledge of him. He's been a coach since '89 in various different ways. He's been in college, Purdue, the Dolphins, New York, and then up to defensive coordinator with the Bengals, and he's done a terrific job with the Bengals. Like, can't say enough about the turnaround that he's instilled there. So, the Giants are doing everything right. They're hiring interesting candidates, often, and it's very the same as the GM search. Often, even though you're not going to hire the guy, you're going to learn something from each interview. You're going to learn something. You're going to learn something about organization or about how you can maybe do something different because they all have different ideas. And every single person you talk to, you learn something different about that person, about that candidate maybe in the future, or about how they do things. And maybe you can take some of these ideas on and improve your organization. I think that's why our GM candidates were very smart because they were all young. They were all very much followed the same pattern of being young and ambitious and and forward thinking and and intelligent. Those are the kind of things that you need. And I think it's the same with our head coaching search. So you're bringing in Brian Flores, who's a terrific head coach. Quinn has had success in his past at the Falcons. And Anarumo's done a very good job with the Bengals. So we're not interviewing any busts here. I think the only two candidates that are like the A+ candidates are Dable and Flores. I think that's fair to say. But I'm happy with either one. But I do think that there's some interesting candidates that we've interviewed.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's a good thing to see that they're casting a wide net.
Yeah.
And in that net, you're getting experience, whether it's at a coordinator position or former head coach. They're interviewing guys who have had success, and their names. These guys. When our last search, we came away with Joe Judge, and everyone was kind of like, who? Like no one really. Everyone thought we were going to get Matt Rule because he was the hot name coming out of college, and then you hear it was Joe Judge, and you're kind of like, who is this guy? But now you're hearing names like Dable and Amarillo and all these different guys, and you're like, these guys, who they are, their resume, and even when there was the rumors about Harbaugh, you're like, okay, we know what he's done at the NFL and in college, so it's like, you're seeing that there's a different sort of feel to this coaching search right now because they're not just bringing in a guy and saying, hey, we like that you worked with Bill Belichick. We want you here, and that's just, that's basically what it was with Judge, really, because I don't know what his accolades were. He got hyped from Belichick and Saban. They're like, that's enough for us. So you're the head coach.
Exactly.
But this time it does feel different.
Do you notice like the GM search? This is quite interesting. The GM search, the candidates are young, right, and intelligent, very young, ambitious. Our head coaching interviews, we're going with experience. Now, not necessarily head coaching experience, but coordinator experience. I think that's important. We're going with experience. You need experience if you're going to have a head coach. So I think we're moving on from the Joe Judge idea, where a really young and experienced guy who didn't really have any involvement in offense or defense. We're bringing in experienced candidates.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point there because you need it, and you need a guy, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that's going to adapt with the league because the league just keeps getting faster pace every single year. It just seems like the league is faster, and it's all based on offense. Yeah, you need a good defense still, but we saw this past weekend, offense wins football games. That's how you win the games nowadays. You have to score more than your opponent. That's always been the name of the game. And we just saw the Kansas City Chiefs put on a thriller with the Buffalo Bills, where in the last, minute and a half, there was an exchange of like 20 some odd points. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And that's how you need to.
What were your thoughts in the game, bro? Moving on.
I was locked in. I could not believe what I was watching. To see Buffalo take the lead and then the Chiefs get it right back and then Buffalo take it right back, you're like, this is not over, even with 13 seconds, because Tony Romo started saying, Buffalo, these guys, congratulations, they're getting their first win in a couple of coaches. They're like, it's their first win as a coach. And I'm like, this game isn't over. They got timeouts. There's 13 seconds. And the Bills were playing prevent defense, trying not to give up the home run play, and all they had to do was just dump it off to Hill and Kelsey in 2 plays, and they're in field goal range. It was unbelievable how it unfolded, and you almost saw you saw the writing on the wall. Once the field goal was made and then went to overtime, you're like, Kansas City's winning this game. It's like, how do you lose after that happens? 13 seconds, you go right down the field, and it was an unbelievable game, and that's what people are talking about. No one cares that there were so many points given up in the last minute. Everyone's talking about how good the game was because there was so much scoring. So that brings in the conversation, amongst casual fans, like, wow, there were so many points. That's what brings in the money, and that's what all the league cares about. The most points, that's the most exciting game, and the league benefited from it. The Kansas City Chiefs benefited, and now even a guy like Brian Dable's going to benefit from it. He lost, but No one's giving him any
He wins.
flack.
He really wins. He's going to be a head coach.
And Josh Allen and the whole Buffalo offense, they get a ton of credit for what they were able to accomplish. It was a heck of a game, and I would sign up for a 7-game series between those two teams because that was a thriller. And now we're going to get to see Burrow go after Mahomes and see can Burrow knock him off. It's a fun time right now. These playoffs have been magnificent, and I can't wait to see what happens on Championship Sunday.
Football wins, man. I mean, the whole weekend we saw 4 walk-offs. That's impossible. The odds of that were impossible, and we got it, man. I mean, started with the Bengal game. Credit to Joe Burrow. This is a huge moment. Even bigger credit to McPherson, their rookie kicker, selected in the 5th round, I believe from Florida. Dude was automatic, and he's got as much confidence as Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow's got a lot of confidence, and rightfully so. He's an absolute boss. But McPherson, before he even made the kick and before he even ran on the field, he goes to Burrow, goes, well, looks like we're going to the championship game. He knew he was hitting that stuff. So that I like the confidence. I'm delighted for the Bengals. I've had an eye on them since they drafted Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's been my boy since college. I think he's a sensational quarterback. I've always loved him. I didn't know whether he'd be as sensational in the pros. I thought he'd be very good in the pros, but he's even eclipsed even my thoughts on, because he was insane in his last year at LSU. But you never know. Sometimes the guys can take a step back. He's just been even better. He's been absolutely unbelievable, and his turnaround. He's turned around a franchise which has just been lost for about 30 years. So I can't say enough about him. Jamar Chase is sensational. So they're going to put up points against the Chiefs. The Chiefs can't stop anybody, and they lost Mathieu, their safety. That's a big loss, Mathieu. So they can really start. Really start going after their secondary. So I can see Burrow and Chase putting up some points for sure. Higgins is excellent as well. So it should be a fun game. So that was I'm really pleased for the Bengals. The Green Bay game, that felt like an 80s game. That felt like an 86 Bears Giants game. That's what it felt like. You know what I mean? With two defenses just pummeling the bejesus out of each other. Everybody got sacked. I mean, Garoppolo, like, he had Glennon numbers for like the first half. Like, he could not throw a pass because he was constantly getting sacked. But credit to the Bengals, to the 49ers. They held tough, and I mean, to be honest though, had Green Bay's special teams not been as horrific as it has been all year, the 49ers wouldn't have put up a point. They couldn't do anything on offense. But they got that little bit of luck, and then they got it done. So I'm happy for the 49ers. Rodgers did himself no favors this year anyway, so I'm not going to cry any tears over Aaron Rodgers. So I think as Giant fans, I don't know if you agree with this, but every time that you see terrific quarterbacks or Hall of Fame quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers fail again in the playoffs, you appreciate Eli Manning even more. Eli Manning he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't care what anybody says. You can come at me any way you want. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer for what he's achieved. 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. You don't do that by accident. I'm not hearing any stuff about him being average, because that's the new thing that's trending right now, from people that are outside the Giants fandom. Oh, Eli Manning's average. I don't know. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Oh. And then the grand finale, of course, was the Rams game was fun. What did you think about that?
It was almost it almost looks scripted. I don't know if you checked out RDC World's video right after the game. They, had the and cut. It just felt like the whole game was scripted to where, okay, the Bucks are getting the brakes beat off of them right now. Let's make it look a little bit better. And Brady leads that comeback, and you're like, is he gonna do this again? And then Stafford just hits that bomb to Cooper Cup, and you're just like, how do these games keep ending like this? Like the whole weekend, like you said, and then for that to be followed up with the Buffalo and Chiefs game, you're like, can we get a better weekend of playoff football than that? I don't think it gets better than that. When you take away your fandom from one team for a second and just look at the whole slate of games and how they all went, you're like, that might be the best weekend of playoff football we've had ever.
No,
But if not ever, it in a very, very long time. It was just four incredible games, and the way they all ended. One of them with the Buck. If the Bucks didn't come back, you're like, okay, that's the bad one of the bunch because it was just a blowout. But every game turned out to be a thriller in the end, and that's all you can ask for when you're on the outside looking in. As a Giants fan, we don't have a horse in this race, Like I don't care who wins out of all these teams at this point because Dallas is out, Philly's out. That I don't care. I just want to see good football from this point on, and that's what we got. So as a football fan, I'm loving it right now, and I'm kind of upset that we only have two games coming up Sunday because I want more playoff football. And
I completely agree with you. That
yeah.
Rams game was just insane. I was wondering whether Akers was taking bets. I mean, how is he fumbling the ball all that time, all that much? It was crazy. Even Cooper Cup fumble and the snap that went about 50 yards. I like, what was going on? It was like a meltdown. I've never seen this. And then a 40-yard field goal that went short. I mean, from a kicker who's just automatic. And then, I mean, even as the kick was going up, I was like, oh, he's automatic. He never misses. And then it was like, short? How is that possible from 45 yards? It was the craziest. Like, I didn't understand it. You're right. It almost felt like you're watching like Friday Night Lights, and they've scripted it, and it's just like the most unbelievable Hollywood ending. And credit though, I mean, Brady's just he's the GOAT. I mean, how he just never gives up. It was 27-3. The Rams handed him the comeback though. I mean, with all those turnovers, I mean, it should have been a 5-score game. They got the doors kicked in. They got their doors kicked in. The Bucks. They just had nothing. They couldn't. They had their offensive line was wrecked with Wirfs out, and with Godwin and Brown out. They had nobody other than Evans. But Evans makes that one incredible touchdown pass from the long bomb, and it brought the Hollywood ending from Cooper Cup and Stafford. I mean, he was facing a full-on, all-out blitz, and he just unleashed the most perfect throw. So whatever questions there was about Stafford in the playoffs has been answered. So we're gonna be in for an exciting game. I think the Rams are guaranteed to make it to the Super Bowl. I can't see any way they can't. They've gone hot at the right time. Their defense looks good. If they could just keep away from the meltdowns. But that might have been just because it was Tom Brady that they just started freaking out. I don't think they'll freak out again. So I think they'll make it to the Super Bowl. And I do have a horse in this race, though. I'm a big Patrick Mahomes guy. As much as I love Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes is my guy. I think he's the most exciting quarterback I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen what he does, the arm angles, the fact that he never ever goes down, like the things he does, he makes impossible things happen. I'm calling him Zeus, the Greek god of quarterbacks. That's what I'm calling Patrick Mahomes. Like, what he did in that last game was outrageous. 13 seconds left, and I mean, I don't know about you, but at 13 seconds left, I was like, oh my God. Because if the Bills win, we can't interview Dable until the Bills are knocked out. So then that would delay it for a while. and you don't want to be waiting around. So that was a big. I was like, oh no, that means that A, as a Giant fan, we can't interview Dable, and B, as football fans, we're missing out on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That's a big loss. You know what I mean? Is there that much interest in a Bills Rams Super Bowl? For me, no. I would have preferred. I'm all over the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are more exciting to watch. So I was really hoping, and then I gave up with 13 seconds left. I was like, come on, surely not. But the miracle happened. Incredible game. I was jumping around. It was so much fun. I've never seen football like it. I think. Would you say that's the greatest game you ever watched?
One of, yeah. I mean, as a biased Giants fan, the greatest game I ever watched was probably the NFC Championship with us and the 49ers. Not even one of the Super Bowls. That 49er NFC Championship game was just so thrilling. But yeah, like as a non-biased opinion or answer, yeah, that might probably be the best game I've ever seen. That was just because of the way it ended. It's like you don't predict anything like that happening in the final minute, really. Just the back and forth. It was unreal. It was something that you see in Madden. Like you see that in a video game. You don't see that in real life. It was unreal. And the fact that it happened in 13 seconds to bring it to overtime, you're just like, only Mahomes can really pull that off, though. Like when you think about it, only the Chiefs and maybe someone like Brady could probably pull that off in 13 seconds. But what a weekend! What a weekend!
I agree, man. I mean, as a Giant fan, the greatest game I ever watched was the Packers Giants NFC Championship game in the snow and the I've never been through that much range of emotions. To that winning field goal, I was going insane. That was one of my favorite moments. Then, of course, the Super Bowl with that catch. I can still close my eyes and picture Burris making that catch in the end zone to win us the Super Bowl in 07. That's probably the greatest game I've ever watched. But in terms of as a neutral, in terms of just the greatest product in the NFL history, that was it right there. The two quarterbacks playing insane stuff, never seen before, caliber stuff. It was a joy to behold. Great weekend.
Really, really was, and we're very happy to have been able to witness it. Let us know what you all think in the comments about this past weekend of football. Who do you think the Giants' favorite is for head coach? Is it Dable? Is it Flores? What is your choice? Who is your choice for head coach of the New York Football Giants? And when do you think we're going to have an announcement? I'm thinking by Friday at the earliest, but we shall see. But be sure to check us out on SportsWire Radio, sportnarium.com. Follow us on the Twitters. The links will be down in the description. And of course, like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you all for watching and listening. And we will see you all next time. Let's go, Giants. Peace out.
Peace out.